Hey everyone, Ben Taylor here and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be explaining ISO and I'm also going to be telling you how that you can use it in your photography. So without further ado, let's jump into today's tutorial and get started. So today we're talking exposure. Or are we talking ISO? We're talking both, because ISO is part of the exposure triangle. You've got aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Now ISO is probably the most misunderstood. I think that aperture and shutter speed are more easy for us as humans to kind of comprehend, and that's because they physically control the light which comes into the camera. Think about it this way. You've got a lens, you open up your aperture wide, the light can come in. You've got your shutter on the camera. If you open up your shutter, the light can come in. But then you've got ISO. What does that do? Well, ISO doesn't physically control the light, it digitally controls it. It controls it by controlling the sensor in your camera. So the sensor can become less or more sensitive to the light. ISO controls the sensitivity of the sensor. So if you're a little bit confused still, don't you worry, because I'm going to wrap this all up for you in a few examples which I took photos of earlier. Take a look at these. The first photo is taken at a low ISO of ISO 200. The picture has been taken indoors where there is not much light. Because the ISO is low, even with the aperture on the lens all the way open and a low shutter speed, the picture is underexposed or not light enough. Now let's crank this up to ISO 400. We're now making the sensor in the camera more sensitive to the light. You can see this reflected in the picture because the image is lighter. So when we push the ISO up, we're actually increasing the light. Let's now take this all the way up to ISO 800. So we can now see from this picture that the image is getting closer to being properly exposed. So when we push up the ISO, we are making the camera sensor more sensitive to light. So if getting exposure correct is this easy, why doesn't every photographer just crank the ISO right up? Well, there's a trade-off. So when you push up the ISO really high in your camera, unless you've got a really expensive full frame censored camera, you're going to get something called noise. And noise is generally something you don't want in your images. Now, if you've never heard of noise, take a look at this. In this picture, you can see that there is grain in the image, also colour artifacts. This is brought on by having a high ISO. So when you're looking to get razor sharp in focus images, you don't want your ISO really high because you're going to get that grainy effect. So now you understand what ISO does in your camera. What kind of photography can you use high ISOs for? Well, low light photography, ISO is king. That means that when you're in a situation like outdoors and there's not much light, or maybe you're indoors and you're taking a portrait and there's just not enough light coming in, you can crank up the ISO, not too high though, remember, and then you can introduce more sensitivity on your sensor, which increases the light in your image. Also, another great form of photography for cranking up your ISO is when you're looking to freeze an image or an object that's moving in time. Think of a bird soaring through the air. You then increase your shutter speed to capture that bird as it flies so you can freeze frame it. But when you do that, you're only letting a little bit of light into your camera because the shutter is only open for a short amount of time. But when you then crank up your ISO, you increase the sensitivity of the camera to light, and this makes your image lighter. I really hope you've enjoyed this short guide into the world of ISO. Now, maybe you don't know that much about shutter speed or aperture. If that's the case, then maybe I'll make videos on them. If you'd like to see them, then just leave me a comment in the YouTube comment section under the video. Let me know, and I'll make a video for you on understanding aperture and shutter speed. I hope you've enjoyed the video today, guys. I hope you found it helpful mostly. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel because you can get free videos to watch about photography, Photoshop and Lightroom every single week. Whatever you do today, guys, have a great day, and I'll see you soon.